And we welcome you back to WHTC's Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, November the 4th. I'm Gary Stevens. And we are very pleased to have on the other side of our Zoom connection, Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Justin Roebuck. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I think you got a nap. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning. No naps for me, but we're ready to go on day two of the election.
All right, let me ask you a nuts and bolts question real quick. Between 4 o'clock and 9 o'clock, there was a 5-hour window where there was no fresh results. Did you basically tell your staff, take a quick nap, get a quick bite to eat, and give it a little bit of rest? Because other clerks in other jurisdictions have done that.
No, actually, it was more of an IT issue on our end. We actually had our final results at 5:45 this morning. So there was a little bit of a delay in uploading those last bit of results from the City of Holland, City of Grand Haven. But those results did come in, and obviously they're updated now, current on the website. But yeah, it was a very busy day for a lot of our clerks, and particularly for those absentee counting boards. And we want to make sure that they're doing the right thing and getting everything in, not only in a timely manner, but just making sure that they have everything accurate. So it was it was a long night.
14 hours since the polls closed. Maybe a little bit early to make an overall assessment, but based on preparation, based on maybe some projections, some visualization, how did you think the day went overall for your staff and for the election process in Ottawa County?
I mean, it was a great day overall. It was, it's incredible to think about. We started the day on Tuesday morning or Monday night, really, with 43% of our voters already having participated, already having voted, cast absentee ballots. So, when you think about that in a maybe normal or general sense, it would have resulted in, fewer folks coming into the precincts. But I think the interest was high. The turnout was very high. We had a 76% turnout, which is a near record turnout for us. And overall, I mean, it was a very busy day. So some of the challenges that we dealt with were really from the positive sense, just because that many people were participating. We had over 1,000 same-day voter registrations that occurred, which is pretty remarkable. At one point, we literally, and I got to give my shout out to Holland Litho, who, local business here that we literally called at about 2:30 yesterday afternoon and said, I think we might need some help. We're running out of ballots in certain precincts. And so we printed and delivered 3,000 ballots to over 14 precincts yesterday. And that's just incredible as well, because we ordered 110% of our ballot quantity. But the reality is we've had 14,000 new registered voters since we've ordered ballots, with over 1,000 of those coming in on election day. Lots of folks deciding kind of at the last moment to not vote absentee and instead vote in the precinct. And so, that process kind of resulted in, more ballots being used as they surrendered their absentee ballots. So it was just a very busy day, but we had some really good, good opportunity for interaction with a lot of voters.
We're chatting with Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Justin Roebuck. By the way, if you have a question for Justin, he'll be happy to answer it. We do have a few minutes at 395-1450, 395-1450. Need to address a question that has come up over the last hour. The president has tweeted very strange, magically disappearing a margin for him, and he's making noises if he's going to contest the election results in the courts on a nationwide basis. That puts the integrity of the process into question among clerks of all, be it in some of the areas where the president might have a contentious issue, or be it in your situation, Justin, integrity, and without it, you guys are out of business.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself, Gary. I mean, I think our system is built on the people trusting the way that they choose their government, and integrity is everything. It's so important. It's so vital. And, at the end of the day, absentee ballots take a long time to count. It's a time-intensive, labor-intensive process when you look at things from a workflow standpoint. Absentee ballots take a long time to count, particularly in states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, where we have very strict guidelines as to when we can begin the counting process on these ballots. So it's not at all surprising when you look at the numbers to see, the numbers slowly going up in terms of the vote total, because again, we've had an incredible volume of ballots cast statewide, and our clerks want to do due diligence as well, and to make sure that they're getting that count accurate, and that they're closing everything down and sealing everything up and signing off on everything accurately, which is hugely important in any election, because we're always subject to that scrutiny of a potential recount, or making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and that's our job. So we have obviously kind of a special awareness in such a big election where there's so much focus, and obviously Michigan is kind of in a in the spotlight a bit on this. But I think we're doing everything we can, and we're doing it with integrity.
395-1450. If you have a question for Ottawa County Clerk Justin Roebuck, stepping in the day after the election, and yes, the morning the dawn rose, and we're all alive. We gotten through this. What lessons have you and other clerks have learned? Maybe again, it's an early question, but what lessons can be drawn from what we've experienced over the last 36 hours?
Well, I think for me, one of the main lessons we're realizing is the way that we vote is changing. Proposal 3, we've talked about that for a long time. That opened up the absentee voting process, but it also gave us same-day registration, which I believe is a secure process because it happens, in this secure database of the Secretary of State's office, where it's happening in real time, and you can justify and see where a voter has registered previously. But those changes really make a huge impact on our local clerks. I mean, they're essentially conducting. We had probably 3 or 4 mini election days leading up to the election, as people were voting early by absentee. They were coming into their clerks' offices. The lines were out the door. I was in the Holland City on Monday at City Hall, and the line was out the door around the building. Just people coming in to get their absentee ballot and voting it there at City Hall on Monday. And that leaves very narrow window of time for the clerks to do everything they have to do to prepare for Tuesday. So I think that down the road in 2021, we really need to focus in Michigan on some legislative and maybe procedural changes to allow better opportunity for our clerks to, really pay the diligent attention that they need to each one of those processes, because really it's running together. I mean, the process of voting early is running right into election day, and same day registration is also like a mini election being conducted in clerks' offices while they're also navigating the precincts. So I think we've got some work ahead of us to try to figure out how to make things more smooth overall. But I got to hand it to our local clerks. They did a phenomenal job yesterday. And we process a lot of voters, and that's an exciting thing to see that engagement.
2 more questions, and I will let you go, Justin. First of all, because you mentioned the tedious process of having to process all the absentee votes and looking to streamline it, there is the concerns about security, concerns about voter integrity and voting integrity, that they say, we've got to you've got to take the slow route so that there is no question about the integrity of the election. Can it be streamlined without compromising that integrity?
Well, I absolutely think so. And I think part of that streamlining really has an impact on the integrity, from the sense of how the clerks and the election workers can handle it. I'll give you one quick example, and that is that, right now by statute, we have 2 deadlines that occur on the Monday prior to the election at 4:00. Monday at 4 p.m. is the deadline for people to receive and vote an absentee ballot in the clerk's office. And it's also the beginning point and the deadline where the local clerk has to download all of the data, all of the information that's kept on the electronic poll books that gets sent out to the precincts. So those are major deadlines that are colliding right now in the statute. I know, again, using the example of the Holland City Clerk's office, amazing folks over there, Kathy Grimm, the city clerk, one of my heroes. She does a phenomenal job, and her team. But they were processing those absentee ballots until much later than 4 p.m. And then they had to go and make sure that their electronic poll books were ready to go in the morning. And I think when those deadlines collide like that, we are leaving room for potential error. And so I think, exactly to your point, streamlining things doesn't necessarily make things faster per se, but it might make things more delineated and give us better timelines, I guess, that we can make things happen.
One other question, Justin Roebuck, and then we'll let you go. Was this election an outlier in the sense of the numbers that came in? 75.4% of registered voters cast ballots. Is this an outlier, or is this a case of maybe what we might be seeing, say, in the next presidential election in 2024? Can we even go that route, or at this point, or can we just say, well, we had a lot of different circumstances led to the high vote, and we'll get back to what we normally have, in 2 and 4 years down the road?
I think it's a great question. I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that entirely. I think part of it for me, obviously we have a lot of political tensions in our country right now. There's a whole lot going on politically with the president and the other party. And the reality is, I'm sure that played into some of the volume of turnout across the country, across the state. But I do wonder too, if the pandemic, I think it's really fascinating to see that, we've been through a hard year. Our community has been through a hard year. We've lost people here, in West Michigan and Ottawa County. And for me, it's so encouraging to see people step up to the plate and say, we're not going to sacrifice our democratic system and the process we have. We want to be engaged. We want to be, choosing our government. And people have totally stepped up to the plate. If anything, the pandemic has had a reverse effect on an increase of the turnout. And, I don't know, again, I'm no political scientist per se, but it's going to be fascinating to see down the road how this replicates itself. But I think absentee voting and voting by mail is here to stay because it's a convenient option for voters and they like doing it. We've had over 100,000 people in Ottawa County make that their option just yesterday.
And I'm raising my hand because I was one of those as well.
That's right. Me too.
But the other point, and I forgot to mention in some of the circumstances surrounding this election, because the novelty of being able to vote early, sort of lifting all the absentee restrictions, that might have played an effect. A lot of more people were feeling involved. Say, hey, I can do this now early. In a couple of years, it's old hat.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I think we see that in other places as well. Early voting is one of those things that we don't have early voting in the sense that most states do, where you line up at a polling location and cast a ballot. You kind of see those trends too happening, where at first, when early voting is introduced, it's a really big deal, and then it's sort of cascades off a little bit, and it's not as much of a volume as you see. So it's going to be interesting to see, what stays and what doesn't. I mean, certainly voting by mail, even pre 2020, is a trend that's been on the rise, in the U.S. And I think we owe it to our voters to make sure that we are, developing a strong infrastructure for having a secure process for that.
One other thing, congratulations on winning re-election. I forgot to mention that right off the bat, but certainly congratulations. And I know that means we'll be talking to Justin Roebuck more often over the next few months or so. Justin Roebuck, Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, thank you very much for joining us at the last minute on WHTC's Talk of the Town. And we look forward to chatting with you again in your regularly scheduled appearance in a couple of weeks, or I think in December. Yeah. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but look forward to chatting with you then.
Look forward to that too. Thanks for having me, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Justin Roebuck on Real News Now, 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.